Hey everyone, Noir here. Let's get into today's Reddit story. On our 5th wedding anniversary, my wife told me she had completely forgotten about it and left on a trip with her male best friend. Instead of getting upset or trying to stop her, I had a huge bouquet of white lilies delivered to the hotel where they were staying. Along with the flowers, I included a short note that said, "With my deepest sympathy for your loss." What happened after that left her absolutely speechless. That morning, I was sitting alone at our dining table with a small velvet jewelry box in front of me. Inside was the pearl bracelet Jessica had been dropping hints about for months. I should have been excited to give it to her, but I was not. I was not even disappointed. I just felt strangely numb. A few moments later, I heard the sound of suitcase wheels rolling down the stairs. Right on cue, Jessica came downstairs with her luggage. There were no flowers for me, no happy anniversary, not even a hug. She just gave me a stiff, awkward smile. "Jason, I am so sorry," she said. "My friends planned a last-minute trip to the island. It all came together so quickly that I completely forgot today was our anniversary," she said. I just sat there and looked at her. Honestly, I was not shocked. It was exactly the kind of excuse I had expected to hear. Without saying much, I closed the bracelet box, gave a slow nod, and said, "It is fine. Go ahead. A beach trip sounds nice." She let out a small sigh of relief. In fact, she looked far more relieved than I thought she should. Then she picked up her suitcase, walked out the front door, and never looked back. The second the door shut behind her, I reached for my phone and opened the tracking app I had installed on her car some time earlier. I had never put it there to keep tabs on her or control where she went. I only did it because she used to drive long distances by herself, and it gave me some peace of mind knowing she was safe. The location showed her heading straight toward the pier. I checked it again just to make sure I was seeing it correctly. That was when I realized this was not some spontaneous vacation with a group of friends, and forgetting our wedding anniversary had not been an innocent mistake. The tracker left no room for doubt. Jessica was on her way to meet Dylan, the man she had always introduced as nothing more than her best friend. That morning only confirmed what I had already suspected. My name is Jason. I am 34 years old, and I work as an architect. I tend to notice the little things. I am not paranoid, and I have never been the jealous type, but I am not stupid either. Most of the time, I trust people. That was something Jessica liked about me when we first got married. Back then, her job required her to travel a lot. There were long drives, late-night trips home, and plenty of weekends away with her coworkers. The only reason I put a tracking app on her car was because she had a minor accident while driving home at 1 o'clock in the morning, and it scared the hell out of me. She knew the app was there from the start. There was never anything secret about it. As time passed, though, she seemed to forget it even existed. I never mentioned it again. Then Dylan came along. The best friend. That was how Jessica always introduced him. "Jason, do not be unreasonable. We are just close friends. He understands me in a way only someone who has known me for years can." That was what Jessica always told me. I tried to be polite about Dylan. I really did. But he always found a way to make me feel like I was the outsider in my own marriage. He rarely looked me in the eye. Whenever I spoke to him, his answers were short and cold. Sometimes Jessica would cut me off before I could even finish talking, answer the question herself, and Dylan would just sit there with that little smirk on his face. For a long time, I kept convincing myself that I was reading too much into it. That changed about a month earlier. A mutual friend sent me a picture. It showed Jessica and Dylan having dinner together. They were sitting much closer than two friends normally would, laughing and smiling at each other like they were out on a date. "They are probably just catching up," our friend said. Yeah, sure. Then something else happened completely by accident. I was moving Jessica's iPad off the couch when a notification appeared on the screen. "Cannot wait to see you at the beach. I booked the room. Meet me at the pier." There was no name attached to the message. I did not need one. I never confronted Jessica about it. Instead, I decided to wait and see what she would choose when our wedding anniversary finally arrived. I had even gone out and bought the expensive pearl bracelet she had been talking about for months, just to find out if our anniversary still meant anything to her. The answer came that morning. It did not. She never hesitated for even a second. She did not even look at the dining table. She showed no curiosity about the little velvet box, no guilt, not even the slightest reaction. She simply picked up her suitcase and walked out the door like it was just another ordinary day. That told me everything I needed to know. I was not heartbroken or overwhelmed with emotion. If anything, I just felt like everything I had been suspecting was finally confirmed. So I stayed where I was, watching the little red dot on the tracking app move steadily toward the pier. She was not meeting a group of friends, and she was not leaving on some last-minute vacation. She was going exactly where those messages had said she would go. At that point, nothing was confusing anymore. Jessica had made her choice, so I made mine. Watching that little red dot move across the tracking app was almost boring because everything happened exactly the way I thought it would. She drove straight to the pier, parked her car, and the location stopped moving as soon as she boarded the ferry. Once the ferry left, the tracker could no longer follow her across the water, but it did not matter. I already knew where she was going, who she was going to meet, and how long they planned to stay there. While she was off enjoying her little getaway, I called a florist in downtown. They regularly delivered flowers to the island resorts, so I asked if they could get an order there as quickly as possible. "What kind of flowers would you like, sir?" the florist asked. "I want a large bouquet of white lilies," I replied. There was a reason I picked them. Jessica could not stand lilies. She had told me once, "Lilies look like funeral flowers. They make me uncomfortable." Perfect. "I also need you to include a card with the bouquet," I said. "Of course. What would you like the note to say?" I kept the message short and simple. "With deepest sympathy for your loss." I did not sign the card. There was no name, no explanation, just those few words. I knew I did not have to explain the message. Jessica would understand exactly what I meant the moment she read it. And so would Dylan. While the florist was putting the order together, I could already imagine how it would play out. Jessica would see the white lilies she had always hated and immediately panic. Then Dylan would read the note, realize it came from me, and completely lose his temper. About an hour later, my phone rang. It was not Jessica. The name on my screen was Dylan. I actually laughed before answering. The second I picked up, he started shouting. He did not even bother saying hello. "What the hell is wrong with you? Do you seriously think this is funny? Sending funeral flowers to our room?" He emphasized those two words without even thinking. Our room. Not her room. Our room. He admitted it before I had to ask a single question. I simply said, "I sent what I thought was appropriate." "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" he snapped. "It means," I replied in the same calm tone, "I am offering my condolences." "My condolences?" he asked. "For what?" "Because she just lost something important." "What are you talking about?" "Lost what?" "Her husband." For a few seconds, there was nothing but silence. I could almost hear him realizing that I knew everything. When he finally spoke again, he fell back on anger. "You're sick. You're actually insane." "Dylan," I said without raising my voice, "you are the one spending our wedding anniversary in a hotel with another man's wife. I do not think you are in any position to decide who is insane." I could hear voices in the background. It sounded like hotel employees or maybe other guests had noticed the commotion. I knew Jessica hated making a scene. I could picture her standing there, trying to disappear, quietly crying or completely frozen while Dylan kept shouting into the phone. I did not need to see it with my own eyes. Just knowing it was happening was enough. After a moment, he lowered his voice and tried to sound intimidating. "You really think this changes anything? She's with me." I almost laughed. "That is great," I said. Then you can stay with her. I paused for a second before adding, good luck explaining all of this to your girlfriend. The silence after that was even longer. He had forgotten that I knew he had a girlfriend too. I never yelled at him. I never called him names. I never even accused him of anything. I stayed completely calm, and I think that bothered him more than anything else I could have said. A few seconds later, he ended the call. Jessica never called me. She never even sent a text. That told me everything I needed to know. A few hours later, I looked at the tracking app again. The little red dot was moving back toward the mainland. She had cut the trip short and was coming home much earlier than she had planned. I figured she had spent the entire ferry ride trying to come up with an explanation. Later that night, the front door finally opened. Jessica walked inside looking completely drained. She was not wearing any makeup. Her hair was a mess, and her eyes were red and swollen like she had been crying for hours. She could barely bring herself to look at me. Jason, please. It was not like that. I did not answer. She took another step toward me, her voice trembling. It just happened. I never planned for any of this. I swear. I stayed silent. Then she said the one sentence almost everyone says when they get caught. It was just a mistake. I finally looked her in the eyes. You were gone for 2 days, I said. She had no answer. I was not interested in listening to more excuses. Instead, I reached over, picked up a folder from the table, and set it down in front of her. Inside were the divorce papers. The moment she realized what they were, she completely fell apart. She begged me to change my mind. She talked about marriage counseling. She kept repeating that it had all been a mistake and that we could fix it. I let her say everything she wanted to say. I did not interrupt her once. When she finally ran out of words, I gave her a simple answer. Pack your things. She just stood there, trembling. Jason, please. I looked at her and repeated the same 2 words. Pack your things. After she moved out, everything else seemed to take care of itself. As for her and Dylan, they did not even make it a full week after that trip. Relationships like that rarely survive once fantasy turns into real life. Meanwhile, I was finally sleeping better than I had in months. The card that went with the flowers said, with deepest sympathy for your loss. But the truth was much simpler. I had not lost anything. She had. Jessica stayed with her sister for the first 2 days after I told her to pack up and leave. I never blocked her number, but I never contacted her either. I was not interested in hearing another round of excuses or promises. Honestly, I thought that was the end of the story. But when it came to Jessica, nothing ever ended that easily. On the 3rd night, she showed up at my front door. She was not knocking softly. The pounding was desperate, almost like she had practiced 100 different apologies on the way over, and none of them felt good enough. I cracked the door open. She looked terrible. Her face was swollen from crying, her eyes were bloodshot, and she looked like she had not slept since she left. Jason, please, can we talk? I stepped aside and let her in. It was not because I wanted to hear what she had to say. I just had nothing to hide. She sat down on the couch, twisting her hands together, looking more nervous than I had ever seen her. I made a mistake, she whispered. I honestly do not even know how it happened. Dylan and it was never anything serious. It was stupid. I do not know why I agreed to go on that trip. I did not say a word. She wiped the tears from her face and looked away before speaking again. I thought maybe you did not care about me anymore. I let out a quiet laugh because I could not believe what I was hearing. Right, I said. So I showed I did not care by buying you the bracelet you had been wanting for months, for our wedding anniversary. She lowered her head, clearly embarrassed. Then came the speech. I think every person who gets caught cheating eventually gives. I want to fight for our marriage. I'll stop talking to him. I'll cut him out of my life completely. We can go to counseling. I'll do whatever you ask. I let her finish. I did not interrupt or argue. When she had nothing left to say, I picked up the divorce papers and slowly slid them across the table to her again. Jessica, this is already over. She stared at the papers as if she had never seen them before, even though only a few days earlier she had cried over those same pages. I can't lose you, she said, her voice cracking. I promise I'll change. I slowly shook my head. You didn't lose me because of one mistake. You lost me because of your choices. The choices you made over and over again. She stayed silent. I looked straight at her and continued. You didn't make one bad decision. You planned that trip. You booked a hotel room. You lied to me for weeks. And on our wedding anniversary, you walked out that door without thinking twice. I paused for a moment before saying the last part. You weren't confused. You were comfortable. She did not have anything else to say. A moment later, she broke down again, crying harder than before. But watching her fall apart did not make me feel anything. Not anger, not guilt, not even sadness. I was simply done. After sitting there for a few minutes, she slowly got to her feet. Tears were still running down her face. Can I at least stay here tonight? She asked quietly. I don't have anywhere else to go. No, I answered. I did not say it out of anger. I just said it plainly. This isn't your home anymore. She stood there without moving. For a second, she just stared at me. Then she slowly nodded, as if the reality of everything had finally sunk in. Without another word, she turned around and walked out. When the front door closed behind her, the house became completely silent. After that, everything unfolded pretty much the way I expected. Her parents called me and apologized for what she had done. Her brother even asked if I wanted him to have a talk with Dylan. I told him, no, that's not my problem anymore. Even her cousins, who had always adored her, started keeping their distance. And one by one, her friends stopped inviting her anywhere because they wanted no part of all the drama. Overnight, Jessica went from being everyone's idea of the perfect wife to the woman who destroyed her marriage over a beach trip with another man. I never went around telling people what had happened. The story spread on its own because she had been excitedly telling everyone about the trip before she left, and once everything fell apart, people put the pieces together themselves. As for Dylan, his girlfriend dumped him the day after she saw a picture of the bouquet. From what I heard, the hotel staff had already been talking about the whole scene. It was a small resort, so news traveled fast, and before long, everyone seemed to know what had happened. About 2 weeks later, Jessica sent me one last text. I'm truly sorry. I hope that one day you can forgive me. I never answered. Not because I wanted to punish her. There was simply nothing left to say. She had made her choices. I had made mine. For the first time in years, the silence actually felt peaceful. Life after the divorce turned out to be much quieter than I expected. It was not lonely or depressing, just quiet. I got back to my normal routine. I focused on work, threw myself into new projects, kept up with my gym schedule, and enjoyed all the little parts of life I had stopped noticing while I was constantly wondering where my wife really was. I did not rush into another relationship. I did not spend my time checking Jessica's social media or wondering what she was doing. I simply started living my life again. And honestly, that was enough. Almost a year later, I met someone new during a design workshop. Her name was Lauren, and she worked as a landscape architect. We ended up on the same practice project, and talking to her felt easy from the very beginning. Nothing was awkward. Nothing was complicated. After the workshops, we started grabbing coffee together. Then it turned into lunch. Before long, we were spending weekends hiking together. There was never any pressure between us. No need to define the relationship or rush into anything. It just developed naturally, one step at a time. A few months later, Lauren and I took a simple beach trip together. It was nothing fancy. No drama, no big plans, just a quiet weekend away. Before we left, I packed the same little velvet box that had been sitting on my dining table the morning of my wedding anniversary. I was not trying to replace the past. I just did not want that pearl bracelet to stay hidden away in a drawer forever, tied to the wrong memory. One evening, we were sitting on the sand, watching the tide roll in, when I reached into my bag and pulled out the box. Lauren looked at it with a confused smile, like she could not tell whether I was about to propose or hand her some kind of mystery. "It is not what you think," I said. She laughed, and I could see the relief on her face. I opened the box and showed her the bracelet. "I bought this for someone else," I told her honestly. "It was supposed to be an anniversary gift, but I never had the chance to give it to her. I do not want it sitting in a drawer forever, reminding me of my marriage." Lauren did not gasp. She did not cry. She simply looked at me, nodded, and understood exactly what I meant. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Yeah," I replied. "It feels right." She slipped the bracelet onto her wrist right away. Not because she was overwhelmed or trying to make a big moment out of it. She wore it because she genuinely appreciated the gesture. That was the difference. With Jessica, everything always felt like a performance. It was always about getting the perfect picture, finding the perfect angle, and writing the perfect caption. With Lauren, everything was simple. If she liked something, she let me know. If she did not, she said that too. There were no mixed signals, no guilt trips, and no secret vacations disguised as trips with friends. Later that evening, we took a walk along the shoreline. The waves were calm, the beach was quiet, and for the first time in a long while, I was with someone who made life feel easier instead of more complicated. I am not the kind of person who tries to turn every experience into some deep life lesson. Still, there was one thing I learned from everything that happened. When one person stops respecting the relationship, the other person cannot keep it alive alone. The end of my marriage was not some great tragedy. It was simply the moment I walked away from a relationship that had already stopped working. Giving that bracelet to someone else was not about replacing the past. It was my way of closing that chapter for good and finally moving forward. In the end, I went back to living a normal, peaceful life. And honestly, that was all I ever wanted.